We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Bam. The 14th episode of the Quantum Leap Revival series is now upon us. This one's called S.O.S. Let's get cracking. Ben leaps into the body of an executive officer on a battleship in the late 80s. And not just any battleship, mind you. This is the ship that Addison's father worked on and allegedly made the worst decision of his life, resulting in the death of several men when he ignored a distress call that turned out to be a U.S. submarine. Turns out the story that she heard her entire life was a lie though. He tried to save the sub and the captain wanted to ignore it. Now, it's up to Ben to try to figure out how to not only prove the sub is friendly, but also how to stop the captain from continually making a terrible decision that'll end up in a war. I really like this episode. It's one of those types of episodes where I just want to skip ahead and talk about the ending, but I can't. I'll save it for later, but thankfully it is a real look at some long-awaited answers that we've been waiting for. But first, the episode in question. I honestly had a blast with this because not only was it a pretty big episode in general, thwarting a war from coming out, but it was also a pretty big thing for Addison, as this episode deals with her father, played by Brandon Routh, and both of them did a pretty good job emotionally. This was the first time, really, that we got to see the actress who plays Addison have more of a vulnerable stake in what's going on, and that was nice to see. She definitely needs more of those moments. The Battleship stuff was also pretty cool, because in a way, I actually think that this is another episode that was at least in part inspired by history. There really was a battleship with the same name of the ship that he ended up on here, but it's not the same one. The real one was a much older ship, and the sub that they are trying to rescue in this, called the USS Tampa, a real ship was indeed called the USS Tampa, and the crew really did die. But it was not a submarine. It was like a normal army type ship that sank because the Germans shot at it. I think for the most part that it's all a coincidence, but it did get me researching history, and there was quite a bit of 80s politics in the episode as well, centering on Chinese territory and our trigger-happy attitude when dealing with certain things like that. I think that in general, it was all expertly handled. I personally felt the tension of it all. I felt the threat of what was going on. I mean, I liked Addison's father in this episode. I also think that the modern day stuff, which was very minimal in this episode, by the way, was pretty good because it all approached the concept of Ben leaping, not being random, but guided through some kind of higher power, which is very much exactly like what Sam believed in the original show, i.e. God. Sam believed God was guiding him and having him do all the stuff for the better. Now, the moment in the end of the episode, after Ben saves the day, he meets up with a very familiar face. A face you've all been practically begging the show to return to for weeks. Martinez. An older Martinez, of course, who tells Ben, your team wasn't able to give you any intel because that was a younger me before I did anything. And Ben's like, but you helped me out. And Martinez like, no, more like you helped me. Mwahahaha. I wouldn't have been able to do what I needed to do if it weren't for you. Ben's like, I don't understand. To which Martinez says, I know, and that's why I'm going to win, before he vanishes off and leaps again. What does this mean? I think it heavily implies Evil Leaper arc. The idea that he has to win against Ben, who would want to do that? The Evil Leapers, because they're trying to do the exact opposite thing as Ben and his team. If Ben wins, they lose. If they win, Ben loses. And I truly think that that's where we're all headed for the season finale, and we will be introduced to the alternate future where the Evil Leapers come from. That's been a long-running theory that people have had for years, that the Evil Leapers don't just come from the future, but instead they come from an alternate future. And the only way that they can exist, essentially, is through forcing butterfly effects. And some of you suggested that that's where Sam is, too. That's why they were never able to save him, because he wasn't there. He wasn't stuck in our timeline. Somewhere down the line, the idea is that he was sent to an alternate reality where these Evil Leapers exist. He's imprisoned, maybe, and if that's all true, this show's going to be insane. I hope it is true, too, because that's a great way to keep the show alive. But we'll see. What did you guys think about this episode? Where do you think that the show is headed? We're getting pretty close to that finale, so let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about the episode as a whole. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and the bell to be notified when I come out with my next Quantum Leap video. And until then, peace out.